Gonna be a long day.
What do we do?
Y'all remember me?
We fight!
Those on top of me.
You've got a fantastic background in television, made some fantastic shows. Now you've made the leap to feature films with Pacific Rim Uprising. How did you find the learning curve?
You know, it wasn't too bad. Everything that I learned in television really applied to the feature. It was just the feature was 100 times bigger. But it's all the same skills. It's all about managing people and managing the story. Without my experience in television, this would have been a very, very steep learning curve for a film this size. But because of the TV background, it actually wasn't that bad.
What attracted you to Pacific Rim as a project for your first feature?
I love the world that Guillermo del Toro and Travis Beacham created in the first Pacific Rim. I'm a huge Guillermo fan. I've been a fan of his ever since Kronos. I followed everything he's done. And I thought that first movie spoke to everything I loved when I was a kid and still love now. I grew up watching Ultraman and Space Giants and all the Toho man-in-suit movies. And this is something that I've always wanted to do. I never imagined I would get to do this as my directorial debut. I'd always imagined maybe 10 years from now I'd get a chance to do this, but to be able to do this for my first movie, it was an absolute dream come true.
Because it's a sequel, one of the things you have to do is sort of honor the original, but you also need to expand the universe and bring something new to it. So what flavors did you introduce into the mix?
Yeah, what we really wanted to introduce was definitely a sequel, but a different experience. So one of the things I wanted to do was advance the timeline 10 years into the future. So we could have a completely new PPDC, a new versions of the Jaegers, more advanced. And on the kaiju side, the same thing, the precursors, the aliens on the other side of the breach, have spent the last 10 years modifying and upgrading their biological weapons, the kaiju. So that's one of the things we wanted to do. The other thing we wanted to do is to honor the first movie, but not try to repeat or imitate what Guillermo did. A lot of the first movie was at night in the rain, and Guillermo did such a beautiful job of shooting that. To try to do that again felt like it would have just been a very weak imitation. So we made the very scary decision to have our major fights in broad daylight. Which is much more difficult for the visual effects team to keep that level of reality when you can't hide anything in darkness.
For sure. I also picked up on a lot of anime influences on this one. Like it's a much more, I don't want to say cartoony because that has a negative connotation, but it's got a very Japanese feel to it. I wonder if you could expand on that a bit for me.
Absolutely. I mean, John Boyega loves anime, and I love anime. So we wanted to give it that kind of taste of anime, and also honor the classic Japanese men-in-suit movies. So it all kind of mixed together, and you can see the anime influences, especially in some of the designs. Saber Athena, the orange Jaeger, has a very, very anime kind of feel. And because of our love for the genre, we really wanted that to be reflected in the movie.
With production this size, there's a lot of machinery, a lot of moving parts, and you're working like you shot in Australia and in China. How did you find that experience?
Working in Australia was fantastic. On my years of doing Spartacus in New Zealand, I always wanted to come to Australia but never had the time. So to come here and be able to spend 7 months in prep and shooting was fantastic. Got to see the entire city and on location scouts, got to shoot in some great locations. And then we went over to China. And did a month of shooting there, which, again, I'd never been to China. I'd always wanted to go. The experience in both locations was really fantastic. One of the things I really noticed was the crew in both locations were just so much fun and so dedicated and such hard workers. We really couldn't have done the movie without them.
When you first came on board, what kind of shape was the story in, and how did that change and develop as you sort of put your handprint on it?
When I first came into the project, there were, over the years, 3 other scripts that had been developed. None of them were quite what Legendary and Universal were looking to do. There were great parts of each of those scripts, so I was definitely influenced by them, but ultimately we built our own story. I came in with a pitch of where we wanted the story to go, and thankfully Legendary and Universal felt the same. So we definitely had a jumping off point, but in classic Hollywood fashion, everything changed from there.
You've expanded the universe and you've left it in a position where you could do a number of different things going forward, which I really like. So where would you, just elevator pitch, like to see Pacific Rim go now?
Well, without giving any spoilers away to the third chapter, I always had a plan in the back of my head when I was hired to do Uprising, that this is the middle part of a trilogy. So as we were building this movie, it was also towards an eye of what the next movie would be. And at the end of the third installment, I had an idea to really expand the universe into a Star Wars, Star Trek style universe, where you can have standalone films, you can have a continuation of the canon movie line. You can go in any direction you want, and also leaving it open to a possible MonsterVerse crossover with Godzilla and Kong if they decide to go down that route. I'm not saying they are, but it lends itself to the possibility.
Now this is, by my count, your fourth science fiction film, following on from Attack the Block and a couple other little ones. So would you say you're a genre fan?
Yeah, I love sci-fi. I really love sci-fi. I love the story. I love the fact that you can make social commentary about something without being too preachy, and sci-fi has that power. And also, it's fun. Fun. I just like watching cities being destroyed.
Fantastic. How do you strike that balance between sort of a social commentary or thematic work and the spectacle? Like, how do you like to sit that?
Oh well, you rely on the story. I mean, the story, Pacific Rim Uprising, the social commentary that you have there is the fact that there's a bunch of kids and people who have to come together for the greater good. Forget their differences and try and do the best they can for the benefit of everybody. And it does need to get further than that, because that is obviously prominent in the story. And then you just throw some robots in, you destroy 3 buildings, destroy Sydney in particular, and then got yourself some balance there, man.
And you've got this sort of bromance / rivalry with Scott Eastwood's character on set. So what was your dynamic like?
I mean, there's no rivalry, between Jake and they just kind of need to sort things out. They're at a point where they just feel like that they've been in a relationship before. Like they just want to talk. They have to talk it out and just become friends again. And the funny thing is, once they get rid of their differences, there's a likability between their relationship, which I really like.
Because it all comes down to empathy in these films because of the drift, because of the link. So that's an interesting angle for a sci-fi franchise. Yeah.
Imagine someone you don't necessarily like at the moment can go into your head and know everything you're thinking. It's a really, really interesting concept.
Slightly terrifying, really.
Yeah, so when you're saying you're ugly, you will hear it in your mind and the person will be like, oh, okay, that's not what you're thinking.
And where would you like Pacific Rim to go going forward? Because you leave the film open in a really interesting place.
Yeah, I mean, for me, there's several different ideas. Because I'm producing this movie, I can't just verbally say it because it actually might happen. So, but I definitely want an expansion to the universe, a different tone to the movie as well. Be good to explore in the next installment. And yeah, who knows?
Mm. Now, apart from the obvious, what else have you got on the boil? What's coming up for you?
Sleep.
You'd be surprised how many people have said that on this junket.
Yeah, Sleep is the movie I want to do. A movie called Sleep with John Boyega.
It's an art house thing, just like it's 9 hours.
Me on the bed, and you see different positions that I do. I think I'm going to be nominated for that one.
I think so.
That's the one that changes this career.
Nate Lambert is a pilot. He's also an instructor. His job is to teach these young cadets and ready them for war. He's got some unfinished business with Jake's character. They used to be best friends. They grew up together.
Well, that's it. Okay, so the dynamic between you and Jake is very interesting because it's part rivalry, part bromance, yeah?
Sure, a little bromance in there.
Okay. What was the dynamic like on set? How did you find bouncing off John Boyega?
Really nice. John and I got along great. I felt like he was a great partner to have. A lot of times in that con pod, it was kind of like a dance. And we had to, find the rhythm to stay in sync with each other. And he was a great dancing partner.
What is a Jaeger? It's you, times 1,000. Tall as a mountain, with a beating heart that burns as bright as the sun. sun. Enabling us all to become the most heroic version of ourselves.
Join the Jaeger Uprising.